This tip is briefing cases will kill you. Don't brief cases. Ever. Maybe you want to know why I'm writing with my own blood. Or maybe you're wondering, what is a case brief and what is briefing cases? Think of briefing a case as performing an anatomy of a case. This the first week of law school, you're taught to brief cases. You have to read these things which don't have a lot of structure, and as a sort of training wheels exercise, you're asked to impose structure on it. So here we have a frog, and we identify the leg, and the sad eye, and the mouth, and the cloaca. And we do a similar thing with the case. We're taught to look for the facts, the procedural history, holding, dicta, any concurrences or dissents. But that's it. It's just identifying body parts of a case. It really isn't anything more than that. So why do I think this is harmful? Let's back up a second. There are a number of reasons that people brief cases. The first is peer pressure. Some law schools don't make you do this, most don't, but for some reason you see other intelligent-looking students. I don't know if it's because they have glasses or they have weak chins or receding foreheads or whatever. You look around you and there's a herd mentality in law school, and so you see other students briefing cases, so you feel like you have to be briefing cases. Sometimes professors won't make you do it, especially the ones who you have for your normal non-legal writing classes, but maybe they'll tell you it's a good thing to brief cases. I know that in one case, a dean at a top 20 law school gave a speech. A student told me this last semester and said that basically briefing cases was a good thing. If they can get that same school, they make you brief cases, but it's totally not helpful. There's a trade-off between the time that you spend briefing cases and the time that you should be doing other things that more concretely lead to your law school success. Let's define success. Getting excellent grades. How do you get excellent grades? You do well on your final exams. How do you do well on your final exams? You do lots of practice exams, more than the other students in your class. And to a lesser extent, you outline and you side study the law, but mainly as means to the end of getting more practice exams done. Now, let's look to real world results. My tutoring students who've done well in the past did not brief cases, or I convinced them to stop briefing cases. I've had many second semester students come to me who were unhappy with their first semester grades, and their problem was that they spent a huge amount of time briefing cases first semester. The ones who did this universally did not have time to outline and took almost no practice exams by the time real finals came along. But don't be too hard on yourself. Again, this stuff appears helpful, and there are little psychological traps to doing it. You're nervous at the beginning of law school and you want to act and you want to do something more other than just reading the casebook. So briefing cases gives you a sense of control. It's something for you to do. You can actually see progress. It's concrete. You feel productive as you see those case briefs pile up. And it does have the side benefit, a very small one, much overweighed by the negatives, but all things being equal, it helps you prepare for class a little bit. It maybe cuts down your anxiety, maybe makes you feel like you're going to do better if you're called on in class. But let me spend a minute trying to prove to you mathematically, the lawyer trying to do math, that you should not be briefing cases. Here you start with 160 hours every week. You gotta sleep 8 hours a night, but let's say you don't believe in 8 hours of sleep. Let's fold in those 8 hours, your personal hygiene, showering, flossing, waxing your whatever. After sleeping and showering, 112 hours. You gotta eat every day, and you may eat socially. So let's give yourself an hour per meal. So this takes into account, maybe you take longer brunches on the weekend, or you have dinner with your parents, or whatever. It also includes time that maybe takes you to prepare a meal or to get to a restaurant. So an hour per meal is not crazy. 3 meals a day, 7 days a week is 21 hours. Well, let's say you have 15 mandatory hours of class every week and that you actually go to class. 76 hours, tons of time to get stuff done, right? Well, I don't recommend not doing the reading. I certainly don't recommend over-preparing, but generally the ratio is that in an hour's class you'll do 2 hours of reading. 15 by 2, that's 30 hours. 46 hours left? Well, not really. Let's say you need to get to campus. None of this includes any travel. Let's say take an hour, even if you walk. I walked to school and it still took me a while. 39 hours left. This is all the time in the world. You have to do everything else in your life. Exercise, worship, have sex and a relationship, socialize. To do well in law school, you need this time to pre-study or side study the law, referring to objective commercial outlines to memorize the elements of the law so you're not confused by the very cases that you're reading, taking practice exams, outlining. So this 39 hours is illusory. You already have over here a full-time job just going to class and reading your cases. That's 45 hours a week minimum. And if the 30 hours seems like a lot, fold in there your legal writing time. Do you want to cut this amount of time just briefing cases, providing you less time to exercise, worship, have sex or have a relationship and socialize, and to do the things that will actually allow you to get ahead in law school? Let's look at this for a second. Let's say you have 4 classes wrapped in those 15 credit hours. Those classes meet 3 times a week each, and that for each class you have to read 5 cases. Not unrealistic. That's 60 cases a week. I think that's even perhaps on the low side, but let's run with it. Let's say the case brief adds 15 to 20 minutes on top of the time that it takes you to read the case itself. Let's even run it on the low side. 600 minutes a week equals 10 hours minimum. You've cut down the time that you have to do everything else in your life by 25% on an activity that doesn't help you in any real measurable way to do well in law school. So please, whatever you do, if you get nothing else out of what I'm saying here, do not brief cases.